3D printing is you can combine prints together. So this is actually the name stamp I made earlier, and I did that as a short. I'll include that up there. But with this, I could 3D print my own name stamp and use this for future things. Stamp 3D PT. Growing up, I actually was diagnosed with dysgraphia, which is a handwriting disorder. And I've done some things in the past to try and accommodate my handwriting. One of them is actually make a stamp professionally for stamping my name on paperwork and homework. Now, when I did this uh, years ago, I actually took like 5 minutes, wrote my name really nice, and then sent it on a stamp or on a card, I think, to a professional company that actually makes like the stamps that actually click down. And cost me probably about $20 to have that done. And I still have that stamp somewhere, but I've got a 3D printer now. So actually was kind of screwing around with something, and I actually found a couple cool ways I could make my own stamp instead. And so if you've got students with dysgraphia or handwriting issues, this is a really quick way in TinkerCAD to design and export a stamp and use that to accommodate their handwriting needs. And it's always cool to just have a stamp with your own name on it. So I'll show you how to do this using just Microsoft Word, screen snipping tool, in TinkerCAD. So in Microsoft Word, open up a document and you have your home screen here, but we actually want to use Draw here. And this brings up a set of drawing tools that you could actually use to draft anything you want. I'm going to make the line on this really thick. And what's cool about this is you could even use your touch screen as a drawing tool. So once you have that done and you're happy with this, we could go on to our next step to save it. So the next step, once you have this beautiful signature, is to capture it. Now, Word document won't let you export this as a picture, but you have everyone's favorite tool, Screen Snip. So Shift Windows key S. That's not it. So I'm going to screen capture this whole part. And in Snip and Sketch, this will give you a form that you can save. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I tried earlier, the line was a bit thin. So definitely use a thicker line, especially when you're 3D printing, because some nozzles will get pretty thin. So once I have this saved, this is now savable as a picture, and I just have to convert it to an SVG. I'm going to take this file here, and I'm just going to convert it so I can get it out of the way. And I'm going to use this onlineconvert.com to turn it from a JPEG file to an SVG. So download that. Start. Give it a moment to process. Download. And now if I open it, I have an SVG or scale vector graphic file that I could use on this for TinkerCAD. So after opening a new TinkerCAD document, I'm going to import file. I'll just choose this one. Now it tends to blow things up really bad, so change your scale to like even like 20%. Import. So that's way too huge for a stamp, but I could hold down the Shift key to shrink it uniformly. A little more, so right now it's about 40 by 15. Shrink, make it even 18 high. Now, once you bring in this shape, you can play around with it. So, let's see, changing the quality. And the fill mode's interesting because it's got a silhouette mode, outline, sharp. So you could actually use this mode here and make yourself some cookie cutters, possibly. So this would be a fun one to play around with in the future. Outline, inner line. But I'm going to go back to the default. Now, every art major here is going to yell at me if I don't do the next step. And if we want this to print on paper, this has to be flipped. And the way we do that is right up here, there's a mirror tool. And when I do that, it gives me this option here. And so now stamp becomes gnats, gnats, and I could go from there. So you can see up here, started with my name like this, written correctly. Now to make it a stamp, I have to flip it. And by itself, it's not supported. So I'm going to take a box, smush it down, make it maybe about 2 millimeters thick. Whoops, not 23. 2. Stretch it out. And just get it to cover the base of what I need. So here's a quick check to see if your stamp will work. So if you look at what it looked like from the start here, this one, which I'll turn light blue, if I try and stamp with this, it's going to come out backwards. So so it should look like this, and it should be reversed. And this way, when you print it, it's about 4 millimeters thick, so I resized it down, and about 20 by 46 is enough to fit on that line space on most pages. So make sure to check and make sure the stamp will actually fit in a reasonable signature line on a document. So make sure to check your stamps when you're done. If it looks like this red one on top, it's not going to stamp correctly on paper, but the bottom green one will. Also check the size. So you could focus on that and use your ruler tool, or R. And now this is 20 by 46 millimeters, so that's actually about the size of what you see on top of most signature lines. Now, make sure to check against what you generally get for homework and make sure to size it like that. And when it prints, this should only take me about half hour to print. And you could do this in flexible material like TPU or rigid filament like PLA. And if you want to have fun with this, another thing you can do, if I ungroup this, oops, come on, just want the name part. And I flip this back, get rid of that. So I'm going to group this, flip, flip it over, going to bring the lettering up so it matches what's underneath. Make it a hole. Press that in just a millimeter or two. And by just doing that and grouping that, it'll actually show me what it looks like what it'll look like correctly. And when I print it, I can still print like this. And since it's so small, there's actually going to be no overhangs required to do this. And it does sync up with what's in front. So when you're ready to print, go ahead. We want, oops, no, don't do that. Go ahead and rotate this so it's flat. Make sure I hit the letter D to drop it onto the build plate. And then I'm going to export this as an STL and go from there. 3D printers, you could combine prints together. So this is actually the name stamp I made earlier. And I did that as a short. I'll include that up there. But with this, I could 3D print my own name stamp and use this for future things.